Lakeshore Drive, riding down 79. It's Friday night, all the girls are looking right. Welcome back to Access Lakeshore Drive with Lane McCray of Bouche.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a very, very, very special guest. Not only is this person one of my best friends, but he is also the godfather of house and dance. And he is also the progenitor of electronic dance music. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Bouche.
That's me. Okay. All right. For the intro. well, thank you.
Well, Lane,
all right.
We just want you to know how special you are and how important you are to this electronic dance movement that you've influenced. So I want to start the interview off by saying that, and thank you for coming over to our little corner of the world for this segment. So thank you.
No problem.
So Lane, well, I don't think too many people need an introduction about who you are and your history, but can you just go into who is Lane McCray as the artist?
Who is Lane McCray as the artist? Well, we got to go back 100 years for that. So I would have to say that my artistry kind of began when I was a young kid trying to overcome being extremely introverted and shy. And I found that through like music. So, I played the trumpet in high school, marching band, that kind of thing. And that kind of developed into, I like being seen in that regard. And then after getting out of school, going into the military, I was always involved in some regional productions, some musicals like Rent, not Rent, I wasn't even around back then, La Bohème, which is like the precursor to Rent, West Side Story, Foolery, I don't know, just a few other things. And I just really got immersed in music and really enjoying it. And that kind of led me into auditioning for shows that required me to dance, which I didn't really do at the time. So just learning, taking some dance classes, learning, breaking, hip hop, jazz, all that kind of stuff. And then kind of, I found an Air Force entertainment group while I was in the Air Force called Tops and Blue. It's a cast of about 30 active duty military men and women that would assemble in San Antonio, Texas, and put a show together in about 6 weeks and take it on the road to all the military installations around the world, providing entertainment for military members, DoD civilians, and local nationals and that kind of thing. And it was a very disciplined organization, so I really kind of like learned my craft there. Mm-hmm. And then, the Air Force brought me here to Germany in 1991, where I met my late partner, Melanie Thornton.
God bless her.
Yeah. And so we began singing together in a cover band called Groovin Affairs. And so it was like, Thursday through Sunday kind of thing. We would, be singing Michael Jackson, Prince, Jamiroquai. She'd be doing Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, that kind of thing. And, we started, collecting a fan base, just with the band. And I guess it was along that time when she asked me if I'd be interested in coming in on a project with her that she was working on with these guys named Uli Brenner and Amir Sarif. And at that point, I had never set foot inside a studio, let alone be asked to be a part of a pop group. And I was like a little skeptical because when I first came to Europe, dance music was very fast, if you will. And it wasn't until I started hearing people like Jocelyn Brown, Martha Wash, Urban Cookie Collection, Crystal Waters, Robin S., those kinds of vocals on top of some of these dance tracks that it became appealing to me. So as I got involved with Uli and Amir, it was like a kid in a candy store. I was like, man, this is kind of cool, and to be making money doing something that you like, was a foreign idea to me. So that's kind of how it all kind of began. now you can't really shut me up. Every time I'm around my friends and stuff, they're like, could you shut up for a minute? Because I'm always humming or singing or whatever, So yeah, so that bug has always kind of been there. Entertainment as a whole, performance, writing, singing, dancing, performing, and just sharing the gift, that I've been so blessed to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations on the new records that you've recently released. I am
Thank
a
you.
huge fan of Save My Life. What was the inspiration behind Save My Life?
Bro, I was just trying to save my own life. That was during this whole, this pandemic thing when it began in 2020. I had just come back from pretty major gig for New Year's. And 2019 was, it was a great year and lots of tours, everything was going really wonderful. And then these shows started, canceling, rescheduling, and that kind of thing. And I just kind of thought to myself, who's going to save me from this? Because, musicians, we rely on touring, for the majority of our income, unless you're like a major label artist, you get that big, $1 million advance or what have you. But I have remained a BMW, in the business, and that's a black man working. So it's that song, who's going to save me but me? I can't rely on anybody else to do that for me. So that was kind of like the impetus behind that particular song.
Well, I had a question, Bouche. I'm a house head. You said Lane?
Well, yeah, call me Lane.
Lane.
Yeah.
I'm a house head from Chicago. So
Okay.
Disco house parties that start out a long time ago. Everybody was DJing. My question is, if you could explain, what's the difference between the European scene as far as dance or house and the American? Is there a difference?
Oh, absolutely. Usually when I go home to visit my family, they think that what I do is called techno. I'm like, wiki. I'm like, okay, well, let me break it down for you. Well, first of all, I'm a house head too at heart. I love Chicago house, Frankie Knuckles. I love Strictly Rhythm. Masters at Work. The list goes on and on and on. That's where my heart is. That's what I actually love singing. I just love that. But the difference is technically the beats per minute, basically. And I think it all spawned from house music originally, that kind of crossed over the ocean into, the UK with this whole, garage, two-step, drum and bass, jungle. And so like EDM, where I am in the genre, is usually between 130, 135 beats per minute. Then it goes up from there to, trans, techno, where it's about 150 beats per minute. And I think house probably sits around 96 to 125 or something like that in the pocket. And so just like a religion, there's 1,000 different ones out there, different versions of house. And I find that, a lot of these artists now today, your pop artists, have kind of bitten off what we've done, and made it commercial.
Yes.
And that's great. We should be out there sharing it, and it should be influenced by other, genres and what have you. But yeah, house music, man, that's when I first went in the Air Force in 1910, I was stationed at McCray Air Force Base in New Jersey. And as a young airman, my paycheck was like $198 every 2 weeks, right?
Wow.
I know, right? Just rolling in cash. But half of that I would send home to my mother. The other half, I would go over to the Sound of Market Street in Philadelphia, and I'd buy all these 12-inch records, like the Peach Boys, Sharon Page, Yazoo, Illusion. Just all those little deep house songs. And then I'd be broke for, 2 weeks until the next paycheck came around. But it's, man, it's just an incredible scene, man. I think house music is rooted in gospel, because it's, you would never hear like if you go to a house club, you would never hear a remix Britney or remix Madonna or
Right.
Janet or whatever, because it's all about inspiration, overcoming, achieving, pulling yourself up, strength, and those are the messages that I think the world needs on a daily, so that's where I draw inspiration from.
Absolutely.
Who's your favorite house guy?
For me, you
Yeah.
talking about as far as artists, or
Yeah.
you know what? I grew up in Chicago. I was around during the '80s scene when it first started in Chicago, so I would have to say the artists like Chip E and local artists here. You had Lil Lewis and people like that.
Oh my God. Oh yeah.
I don't have a particular favorite, but I have multiple, certain artists that had products that came out, like Mr. Fingers. I have a variety of them. I don't have one particular favorite. Just
Okay.
So much good music, man. And like you said, it hits you in the soul, and it kind of motivates you. And so house music that brings out a lot in me. Dance music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like church. I think it was last year on my birthday. I went to New York to see David Morales band at this club over in Brooklyn, and it was like a religious experience. It was like everyone was like at church facing the altar, and seeing all these people from all different walks of life in there, digging it and getting the message behind it. I met some really cool people there that I still talk to today, because some people were, as we call them, day trippers, who were just in there because they heard it was a hot place to go, whatever. But now they're hooked on house music, and these are people that you wouldn't think typically would be into that whole scene, But yeah, man, that's mi corazón. That's my heart right there.
So, what are some of your memories from making the first La Bouche record? Could you walk us through that process?
Memories. Wow. There's lots of memories. I think probably, obviously, I think the first record that we put out there, interestingly enough, was Sweet Dreams. And, living here in Germany.
Could you sing just a part of that? Our listeners may not know what that song is.
You want me to sing it? Well, let me tell the story and I'll tag it at the end. How about that?
Wonderful.
Okay, so Germany, no label in Germany wanted Sweet Dreams, right?
Wow.
And so the producer sent it to Scorpio Music in Paris, France. And no one there wanted it either. So one of the guys there sent it to a DJ friend of his in Italy. And Italy started playing it. And mind you, there was no video, there was no visual. No one knew who La Bouche was visually. They started playing it on the Italian radio. It quickly shot up to #1. And it was the #1 song of the year in 1994. So this memory was of me and Melanie going down to this festival called Festival Bar. And there was about 60,000 people there. Now you're talking about two country ass kids, one from Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, one from Hopkinsville, Kentucky. And we're in full regalia in a foreign country with about 25 security guards looped around us because it was that frantic. And I'm just like, is Madonna here? Michael Jackson's here? Why are all these people screaming, right? And as soon as that song came on, it was electrifying to see 60,000 people singing this song. It was incredible. And so that's one of my earliest and fondest memories of sweet dreams of rhythm and dancing, sweet dreams of passion through the night, sweet dreams of taking over, sweet dreams of dancing through the night. Hola, hola, hey. So everyone probably knows that song, right?
You still sound good.
So I'm not
what a treat that is for us and our listeners. Thank you for blessing us with that. You sound wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
But there's tons of other memories, you know, that I hopefully one day will collect and put into my memoirs, or you know, have it displayed in the movie or the musical or whatever I can come up with. I remember once, we had so many like mishaps too that were like funny. I mean, Melanie used to always laugh at. One of the early shows, the women always got the little hair pieces on and tracks and all this other stuff, and Melanie had on this fall on the back of her hair, and so part of the choreography was, we came in real close, and I kind of like dipped her back and snatched her back up, and she came back up, and she was looking at me with this horror on her face, and I was like, "What's wrong?" And she looked down at the ground, and her hair was on the floor. So in true fashion, Melanie, it wasn't like she was bald headed or anything like that. But she picked it up. She pulled the braid out of her hair that she had, and she just swung the hair around and just kept singing. The crowd just went up, The ones we had out in Vegas at the Rio, my then girlfriend had some sunglasses made for me. They were like red to match this little red ensemble I had. And but they kind of blocked out certain colors, right? So the hype man that was introducing us was like, international recording artist, RCA, blah, 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 blah. Ladies and gentlemen, La Bouche. And we run out there, and I just disappeared, right? Because I fell over the edge of the stage just like that, right?
Wow.
And I got up real quick. I don't know if anybody saw me or not, but I know my leg was killing me. Did the show, went backstage, pulled my pant leg up, and my chin was scraped up down to the white meat, right?
Wow.
And all I remember is Melanie just laughing. She couldn't catch her breath, bless her heart. And I had to laugh too, because the shit was funny, right? Because it was like, anytime that an artist is trying to be too cool for school, something always happens, right? But there are amazing stories, from, my mom meeting MC Hammer and Tupac at the '96 MTV Music Awards, because they were in the same hotel we were, and my mom was on the elevator with them, and she said the most that she remembers that they were extremely polite. It was like, "Yes, ma'am." They were like, "Are you guys singers? Should I know who you are?" They were like, "Yes, ma'am, we are singers." Blah 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 blah, and my mom got his autograph, and this was like the week before he passed away, right before he was killed in Vegas. I said, look at my mom rolling with the big dogs.
Wow.
I had another question too, Lane, about labels. You hear these things about different labels and releases and the privileges on certain labels. I know you on RCA and you were on BMG Records. What can you tell us a little bit of the difference? Was there a difference, or as far as how you were treated on the labels?
Well, when you have a hit record out, they treat you well, right? It's when you it's when you don't have the hits that they don't have time for you, or can't pick up the phone, or what have you. We started with BMG here in Germany, and for your listeners who don't know, BMG at one time was the largest privately held company in the world, right? And they were in books, radio, TV. They were everywhere, right? And RCA was the subsidiary of BMG. And that's how, when we went to the US, we were assigned to RCA Records.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say that my experience was bad at all, because they took really good care of us. As an example, normally when an artist signs with a label, and say they get like $1 million advance, they shoot the videos with, Hype Williams and all these big people. And they don't read the fine print of their contracts to realize that they have to reimburse the label for all of those expenses, promotions, all that stuff. We were lucky enough where Frank Farian, my producer, who was, Milli Vanilli's producers, we got in there at the right time where he didn't want any more scandals or any more drama associated with him. So we got a nice advance. We didn't have to pay back any money for videos, none of the promotions or any of that. So the money that we made, like on the road or from royalties, were ours.
Went right in your pocket.
We're right in our pockets, and but it's unfortunate. I think the only thing that I would say on the somewhat negative side about things, when you see groups out there like Destiny's Child or these Backstreet Boys or one of these like groups or what have you, and they come out with a bang, right? And then always there seems to be one that the label seems to be pushing like to the front, right? And everyone else seems to get relegated to the sidelines or to the
Yes.
back, right?
Yes.
And that almost happened with La Bouche. But being an educated brother, I peeped it, before it began. We were on single number, I think 4. We were doing You Won't Forget Me at the ABC Soundstage in New York. And I don't expect like every song to have a rap on it, right? So, and I wasn't tripping about that. But someone at the label edited my rap from 16 bars to 8 bars, which was no problem. The problem was you edited to grammatically not make it make sense, and I wasn't doing it. So that's what I told them, and everyone got on the phone. They was calling the A&R guy, he's being difficult, blah, 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 blah. I said, no, let me get on the phone. Dave Novick was his name. I said, Dave, I'm not being difficult, dude. I said, but my mother would kill me if she heard me saying anything that was out of sorts from what she has taught me. I said, if you want to do the rap, I've got a DAT, digital audio tape for y'all folks that don't know what that is.
Right. Old school.
Old school. Of the whole rap on there, right? And we can do that, or we cannot do it at all, because I'm not saying this that's not reflective of who I am as an artist, as a writer, as a man, right? So the director was happy to have the whole 16 bars. It gave him more to cut, more to edit, and it was great, right? And then like photo shoots and stuff, like, okay, Lane, you stand in the back, and put your hands up and you kind of out of focus. I said, no, I'm not doing that. I said, this is a group, 50-50. If somebody wants to go, if Melanie, you want to go in the back? No, I'm not. I was like, and so when you see the SOS cover, you'll see me in the front and her in the back. Yeah.
Beautiful cover. I love that. I still love looking at that cover, by the way.
Yeah, and then even for like the You Won't Forget Me video, I don't expect to have designer clothes, for the stylist to bring in or whatever. But they rolled in like 3 racks of clothes for Melanie, which she's has lots to choose from. They brought in 2 clothes hangers for Lane.
What?
2 clothes hangers. One, and I'm talking about some tight stuff. The stuff was so tight you could see my thoughts. and then once again, I was like, that's fine. Don't worry about it. I've got a suitcase full of clothes with the tag still, and I'll send you the bill, right? And that's what I did. So yeah, some interesting things, but overall, the label always treated us really nice. I'm sorry to interject this little story here too, but once I was flying from Frankfurt to New York, right? Mm-hmm. And I was in first class. I was all the way up at the front, and it wasn't like the label spent that money on me. I used my mileage to upgrade it or whatever, right? Just to enjoy myself, right? So we landed in New York, and I see Bob Jameson, who is the president of RCA, and Dave Noah, the A&R guy. And they're looking at me like, "What are you doing up here?" I'm like, "What are y'all doing? What are y'all doing back there?" I was like, "Yeah." So it just shows you that sometimes people don't think you're supposed to be where you're supposed to be, right? And if you allow them to mandate those things for you, you may not go anywhere. But I deserve to be wherever I'm at.
Absolutely.
Right? Whether it's coach or whether it's first class,
Absolutely.
So, Lane, what were some of your earliest memories of music growing up in Kentucky? You're from Kentucky, right?
Actually, I was an Army brat. So I grew up in Kentucky after my parents split up, but I was born in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and we lived in Hawaii, we lived in Germany, North Carolina, some other places. But my earliest memory of music in my family, my father obviously was a big Motown guy. So, I grew up with the Temptations, the Shy-Lights. I grew up with Hey, what's up, everybody? This is your boy Lane McCray from the Bouche, and you're listening to Access Lakeshore Drive. In the 70s with like Confunction, Barcades, BT Express, Earth, Wind & Fire, the Delphonics. And so, so it was that kind of music. The Jacksons, the Silvers, the Osmonds, well, not so much the Osmonds, but that whole generation of like the Jacksons, you know. And I always thought the Silvers were better than the Jacksons personally, but
Oh,
Yeah, they were such a great group. They don't get a lot of respect, man. I'm glad you brought them up.
oh yeah,
Like, really don't get a lot of respect. And honestly, like, if you closed your eyes, you would have assumed that you were listening to an old Jackson 5 record.
oh yeah.
Like,
You know, my favorite was Cotton Candy. I call you Cotton Candy. I've got a sweet tooth that's hard to satisfy when I'm stuck on sugar. I was like, wow, I love them.
I love them too. I remember looking at the album covers with those big sweaters with the S's on the sweaters. It was so collegiate, you know.
And
Really
they were pretty
wholesome.
too. They were pretty
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, very, 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 very pretty group. You know, I enjoyed them. I enjoyed them. So, what do you remember about being on the road? Has that changed over time, or is it still the same?
Well, it's pretty much the same. I think the difference now is there's levels of what I will take and what I won't take. In the beginning, you're just kind of grateful to be out there. And, you know, even though you may have, you know, you're staying in just a regular hotel, you know, and even though your rider might have said, you know, 4 or 5 stars or whatever, when you realize that some of the locations that you're in don't necessarily have, you know, 5-star hotels or whatever, you just take what you can get or whatever. But we were always just grateful to be working. Very humble, very feet on the ground kind of attitude. You know, please excuse me, thank you. We want to always leave a professional mark wherever we went. And the road pretty much is the same. I think the difference now is that, you know, I've kind of garnered the respect of the industry, you know, especially when we're touring as being a professional group, always deliver. Because there's a lot of groups out there that don't really sing, that don't really, you know, they're either singing on top of their tracks or they're lip syncing or whatever. But La Bouche has always been known for being the real. And I actually love being on the road. I love the travel. I love going to the airport. I love getting on the flights. I love the hotels, you know, the spas, the meals, and the shows and the people that you get to meet while you're out there. I was the partner that I work with now, Sophie Cairo, said to me probably about a year in with working with me, she said, Lane, do you know people like everywhere we go? I said, well, yeah, pretty much. I said, you got to remember, I've been doing this for 26 years. I said, and I know people on probably every continent, you know, that
wow.
I remain in contact with, you know, and the biggest compliment that I get is from most of them of how down to earth and how real, you know, I am, you know, and there's no reason to walk around, you know, with your nose up in the air, you know, like you're the shit, you know, because the bottom line is, you know, we put our pants on the same way. I just happen to have a different gig than you do, you know. You know, I hurt when I'm in pain, you know. But I need to go to the bathroom. I go to the bathroom just like everybody else. So you can't believe the hype. And I think a lot of these groups that do believe the hype, and trust me, there are some that are still out there with half a hit, you know, and they still, you know, think that this is 1990, whatever, you know, and you have to work. You know, this is a job. This is work. You know, this is not for the faint. You know, this is work. You know, and a lot of artists that are in this game are either in it for the money specifically, or they're in it for the love of the art.
You know what, Lane? I had a question. I you know, I look back and I see a lot of the early artists, particular R&B, how they start out, they had mega hits, they made millions, and yet they're broke. And it's a royalties thing. Have you dealt with any situations like that?
Me personally, no. And I thank God for the fact that, you know, I was of age when this all started happening for me. So I wasn't, and Melanie was, you know, not far behind me. So neither of us were naive enough to fall prey to a lot of the things that that happen to a lot of young artists.
Right.
And one is the contract, right? You hear Oprah talk about it, you hear Bill Cosby when he was in favor talk about it, sign your own checks, read the fine print, who's controlling the name of the group, who's the publisher, who's getting what,
Right.
and a lot of artists are so eager to get out there that they will cut their nose off despite their face for a little bit of fame, and got a really good friend of mine, and I'll reserve saying her name right now, because I'm not sure she's going to tell us, but she was signed to some pretty well-known producers, right? She pretty much wrote the entire record. There were probably 10 top 10 dance singles on there, working a butt off, and got 0 on publishing.
Oh, wow.
Because she didn't read the fine print. And what happens a lot of times is producers will get you in the studio, and blow your head up, how good you are. Then they record a record that they find promising, and then they put it out there. And if it takes some traction, then they'll come back and say, well, let's sign a contract, right? If it doesn't do anything, it's just another demo, right? So, and what happens is they'll put you in the situation, well, let me take this to my lawyer, let him check it out, or take it to a lawyer to check it out. Well, no, you need to sign it now because, this is we're not going to offer this tomorrow. And they feel pressured. So they end up signing these bad deals. And then this goes back to reading that contract about, who pays for what? Is the label paying for the video? Is the label paying for promotions? Are they paying for the hotel? Are they paying for the fights? Are they paying for the food? Are they paying for the styling of the video shoots, live performances? All that stuff has to be spelled out, and it has to be checked out by a legitimate lawyer that's going to be on your side. And I find what happens is, and I laugh at this, because MTV Cribs, right? You see these artists who have sold, 500,000 records or 1 million records, platinum, and they're living in these, palatial homes with, Lamborghinis and Bentleys and Rolls Royces and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, wait a minute. I sold 4 million records in the U.S. and I ain't living like that, And then once again, these are the advances that they've taken on these records, and they have to pay that stuff back. So when you wonder where artists are, and when you ask that question, well, what happened to so and so, and what happened to so and so? Well, what happens is people stop buying their records, right? And depending on your ego, are you going to be willing to still keep the hustle up? Or are you going to get a normal 9 to 5 to take care of your family, And the pride sometimes outweighs the honesty that they should have to say, like I have done in my career, to take care of my family. And, whether it means working at McDonald's or learning another trade, which I did, that's what you have to do. Music, if it's in you, it's going to be in you, right? And it's unfortunate, but there's a lot of artists there that have fallen prey to that, from as far back as I can remember, Little Richard being ripped off from all his royalties and his rights, a lot of Black artists, and it's sad. So,
yeah.
But trust and believe, I own the name La Bouche. I own my masters,
Right.
And people are still trying to buy those from me now to this day for an exorbitant amount of money.
Absolutely.
But this is something that, rolls over in perpetuity to my daughter, to her kids, so I'm thinking about the future. I'm not thinking about the now.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I can certainly say just from watching your performances over the years, and it's so funny that I'm blessed enough to know you in this space that I can actually say I've grew up watching you, and now as a grown man I can have the privilege of doing that in real time.
Are you
I don't know. I don't feel like it sometimes. I have to question myself sometimes. I have to say, wow, is all of this really going on? But sometimes it doesn't feel like that. I don't know. It doesn't, because I have Yash here, and Yash was, one of the few, people who I give him a lot of credit on this show. I do. He made sure that, I turned out okay. So I still have to, pinch myself and say, okay, is all this going on? But anyway, Lane, this interview isn't about me, it's about you. But what I can say, is over the years, I have watched you continuously evolve and become a chameleon. And that's a very old school trait. Do you think the new generation has that same skill set?
There might be one or two out there that have it. And I think when you limit yourself to a specific genre or a specific type of music or whatever, you limit yourself there, right? My interests are vast and many, from house, gospel, R&B, jazz, musicals. It's all over the spectrum. So when people try to put you in a box, this is like, there's many aspects of who I am as a person, many different things that I enjoy. So why would my musical taste be the same, right? And so I don't know if I've been a chameleon. I know that if there's a song out there that I think I can represent, regardless of the genre, if it speaks to me, I think it will speak to, my audience. And I think people can appreciate that.
Yeah, it's been really, really nice to see your range over the years with the different genres. I enjoy you doing, some of the pop rock stuff. So I'm excited for, some of the continued work that you have. Can you tell us about what some of your newer projects are going to be coming up?
Well, let me backtrack just for a second, and I'll get to that.
Sure.
After Melanie passed away, right? And I took a couple of years off and kind of wilded out for a minute, and then came back to the table. And I got with my agent, who will remain nameless, told him I was ready to go back to work, and he told me that, La Bouche was dead, perhaps I should find me a regular job, right?
Wow.
So, yeah, not really one to listen to people's advice. I just rebranded and kept moving forward, right? And so as I began to try to reach out to different producers and stuff, all they wanted me to do was rap. Okay, and I enjoy that, but that's not all that I can do, right?
Mhm.
So it took a minute for people to take me seriously as a singer, and that's kind of worked to my advantage. I remember this new era that I'm in right now. I sent, some of the material to some promoters to take a listen to, and they're like, "Oh man, we really like that. Who's the singer?" I was like, "Me." And they're like, "Are you kidding?" I was like, "Yeah." And even earlier than that, I remember doing a gold platinum party here in Frankfurt with Frank Farron and our BMG, and everybody was there. And Mel and I did an unplugged thing with just piano, acoustic guitar, some percussion, and we did like "Be My Lover, Sweet Dreams," and "Falling in Love." And then Melly sang "I'll Always Love You," and I did my own little rendition of Michael Jackson's "You Are Not Alone." And I was singing this song, and I saw Andy Zelenite, president of BMG, run across the room to Frank and ask him why wasn't he singing more, right? But this new era that I'm in, I really like the songwriting lyric aspect of what it is that I'm doing, and it's and I can't take all the credit for it because I've got a great team of people that work with me out of Vienna, Austria, that are great musicians. And even at this stage of the game, I don't think that I know everything. There's a lot that I do know just by virtue of being on the planet as long as I have, but I'm always willing to learn. But, even sometimes now, you've got to put your foot down and let people know, okay, I'm not really working for you. And so but especially with a couple of demos and stuff that I've gotten, and I pulled them back and I sang them. And one of the guys came to me, he said, "Well, you don't sound like me." I was like, "Well, guess what, dude? I'm not you. If you're writing a song for me, I'm going to put my own stamp on it to make it Lane McCray. Now, if you don't want that to happen, we can keep it moving." So there seems to always be something, but I mean, I really enjoy what I'm doing now. Musically, this is stuff that I can sing like all day. I mean, dance music is extremely hard. House music is extremely hard on the throat, right, on the voice. But I find this genre is very easy on the voice, and I enjoy that. So I don't know. Does that answer your question?
No, I wanted to know what were some of your upcoming projects looking towards.
Well, I got a lot of irons in the fire. Nobody's really doing albums anymore, especially, independent artists such as myself, without label support. So it's all about a singles driven market, just doing singles, putting them out there, hoping they'll catch fire. So I'm trying to put the finishing touches on, if you want to call it an album, on this whole genre that I'm doing, this kind of like pop, soul, rock genre. I'm continually in love with house music. So I've been writing, house tracks, dance tracks, EDM tracks, trying to introduce, some of my colleagues who haven't had the opportunity to get out there and shine on some records. I've got a couple of records in the works with Robin S., CeCe Peniston, a couple other people that you may not have heard of, but people that I think can really, add something to it. I just like sharing. I'm not a greedy kind of guy, and see what happens, but it's unfortunate that, the pendulum of success is predicated on whether or not you can get a record onto radio. And, unfortunately, that's one of those kind of pay for play kind of things or whatever. And so, I really admire like Macklemore when he came out, with his record, and I admire like Maya, who's putting her stuff out, and she's sold more records as an independent artist.
She's really done great. Yeah.
So with McCray Records, I'm hoping to follow in that trend as well. And at this point, I just love making music, and if I can put music out there that people enjoy, that they like, then I can die happy. It's never been about visibility, or being on television or being recognized or anything like that. I've always just wanted to leave my carbon footprint on this planet when I leave here, a body of work that, my daughter, my grandkids, and everybody could be proud of,
And that actually takes me to my next question. So for your last video, I'm not sure, but it looks like you may have shot that in Kentucky. Can you tell us how that was like?
Well, after shooting the previous single, I keep running. I shot in Chicago, and I like that one-on-one kind of feel, right? So when I was at home, I knew the single was coming out at the end of January, and I was going through all these issues with the guy that shot the video for me in Chicago. I was going to fly him to New York because I had this concept for the video that I wanted to get across, and it just became too involved, and so I just kind of put that on hold, right? Was supposed to have some shows in New York for New Year's. They just kind of fell through because of COVID. And so I'm at home in Kentucky, and one of my friends, Ben Watkins, is a studio engineer, musician, videographer. And I'm just talking with him. I said, "Man, do you got some time? I just want to shoot this little song, blah, 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 whatever." And Hopkinsville, Kentucky is not a big city at all. It's probably about 30,000 people max. Our downtown area there is, a lot of the stores have closed up because of Walmarts and super centers and whatnot, Costco and all this other stuff. But there's some really great architecture, brick, just some really good visuals down there. So this one night, it was probably about 15 degrees outside. And I just wanted to show off my hometown of Hopkinsville, of where I went to school, and shot the video there. And it was such a thrill just to represent Hopkinsville and have it like in a video. And people from there would recognize Farrell's Hamburgers or Clayton's Jewelers or the Alhambra Theater or what have you. And then I get to talk about Hopkinsville, and people are like, well, what's in Hopkinsville? I said, well, actually, quite a bit is from Hopkinsville. I said, Cassius Clay, a.k.a. Muhammad Ali, his grandmother lived on Young Love Street behind our street of Hayes Street. SOS Band, Little River. We've got Edgar Casey, the Sleeping Psychic. We just had a young lady passed away. She was a feminist writer that just passed away. I think probably in December or early January. Was from Hopkinsville. And not to mention, the Nappy Roots is from Kentucky. You got a whole host of actors and actresses that are from, Kentucky, Jennifer Lawrence, George Clooney. The list goes on and on. So, I was happy to represent Hopkinsville in that video. And waiting is something that I was asking myself constantly, what are you waiting for? Because sometimes I find that we can be a little procrastinating in the things that we need to get accomplished and the things that we need to get done. And it's hey, what are you waiting for, dude? Just do it. So that's what I did.
Well, it was beautifully shot. I looked at it instantly, and it just gave me a really nice, warm, comfortable vibe. It was very, very, very refreshing. I can say that. Definitely want to say that.
Well, and the thing I'll say too, over the last couple of years, because of COVID and everything, of not being as active, as one would think we'd be, Lane picked up a little bit of weight, right? Like a lot of people. And I've never had an issue with my weight, from forever, right? I ate what I wanted to, did what I wanted to, whatever. And I got into like 260 pounds, which was like way out of my comfort range. Wow. And so I was happy to do this video because I wanted to show off my new 195 pound body. Oh. And it was I've been in my mom's house. I got my bedroom there that's full of clothes in the closet, vintage, atelier couture stuff that I haven't been able to wear since 1998 maybe. And I didn't want to throw it away, so I just kept it all in my mom's house. And when I was at home this Christmas, I was trying some of this stuff on, and it was fitting. I was like, what? So the suit that you see in the video for Waiting is a Dirk Bickenberg, is a Belgian designer. I'm not even sure if he's still around or not, but I got my behind in that suit, and I was like, hey, what?
Yeah, Lane, well, I had a couple questions. I know you are heavily involved in the foundations, and I also see that you have the Lane McCray Art Gallery. What's that? Tell us a little bit about that.
The Art Gallery. Well, who knew that Lane McCray could even draw, let alone paint? I think it was 2018. I think it was 2018. We were doing a show at Cape Fear University in Wilmington, North Carolina. And that's kind of the area that I was born in. And I've got a couple of friends that live in like Raleigh. And I was with him and his wife. And one of the walls in their house has all these paintings on there. And I thought it was really interesting. And he said, well, these paintings are all from people who have stayed here at my house. So you have to do a painting before you leave here. I was like, dude, there's a lot of things I do, but this is not one of them, He said, no, you got to. So he made me sit there on the small canvas and do something. So, one of the things I used to do as a kid, I used to always doodle on my schoolwork on the margins. And so I just drew like one eye, half of a nose, and half of a lip. And I think I did the eye blue, the hair was like yellow, and the lip was red, and that was it. So I come back to Germany, and I'm just kind of like driving around doing some errands or whatever, and I see like an art store. So I just pulled the car in and bought some canvases, and I started just drawing, just replicating like some famous works of art, like Picasso's, and called my Focassos. And it just kind of took off from there. And interesting, once I started doing like some of the greats, or my interpretation of the greats, because it's more kind of like pop art than it is like some of these other things like surrealism and all these other terms and stuff that I can't even remember. And then I started doing like some African stuff, and I wasn't really good at doing like features like eyes, ears, nose, things like that. So all of my early stuff is like faceless, just blackface, African stuff or whatever, which is kind of cool. And then I started watching a lot of tutorials on like YouTube on, how to draw like eyes and noses and stuff like that. And kind of started getting a little bit better at it. And to the point where I had probably over 150 paintings like in my house. And it was my label mate that suggested that we put the stuff in a gallery. I said, well, we got COVID going on. I said, well, we can kind of just do it halfway. So here in the town that I live, I've got the Lane McCray Art Gallery that's not open to the public, but the window display of about 50 of my paintings are in there. And they've been selling anywhere from, 300 euros to 1,000 euros, some of the pieces, right? And that was kind of shocking to me that somebody would want something that I did, but okay. Yeah, okay. And so it's something that I started doing because, and Dantès, you can relate to this. When you wake up in the morning sometimes, for me, first thing I do is get a cup of coffee, light a cigarette, get in front of the computer, open up emails. And then there's contracts, and then there's, show proposals, and there's itineraries, and there's music, and, and I'm sitting here until like 5 o'clock in the afternoon doing all this, at which time my manager, who is in Florida, is just getting up. He calls, and we're going over stuff, and, it's now 9 o'clock at night. And then the guy that I run the label with, gets off from his regular job at 7. And then we're talking until 11, 12 o'clock. Now, I love music. I love it true. But I couldn't keep doing it at that level from morning until midnight because I was losing myself to just living. And so the painting gave me an out to do something different than other than that. So like barbershops, I'm closed on Mondays. And, I paint, and my workday, unless it's an emergency, ends at 5 p.m., and you have to make time for those things. You have to not lose yourself in anything that you're doing, regardless of what it is. And so it's a love now. It's like music, painting, cooking, all of that. I just love it.
I could actually see a cooking show. Actually, I really could.
But and also the art kind of, it kind of goes with the music. And so I think, when I do a release party, I would love to do like a gallery music thing because there's like each of the songs has a piece of artwork that's associated with it. Last summer, I think it was last summer, summer before last, we released a track called "The Rhythm of Love," and the cover was.
I was just getting ready to say that. Yeah, I was just going to say that. Yeah, I didn't know that at first, but then when you told me it, that's when I was shocked. And I remember we were looking at like some of the paintings like that you've done in your house on your wall, and I just was so blown away by that. I'm like, wow, this man is superiorly talented, and I don't think people realize how talented Lane McCray is.
Yeah, and if your listeners want to check out some of the artwork, they can always go to lanemccray.com.
You guys heard it here. Go to lanemccray.com so you guys can get some of that beautiful artwork. Lane, first of all, I want to thank you.
Lakeshore Drive, riding down 79. It's Friday night, all the girls are looking right.